Welcome to the channel and this video where we'll be taking a look at Community Report 18 for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This was released on the 12th of March 2021 if you're watching in the future. This report covers a couple of fixes to do with loading and unloading vehicles and underground mode, something that I've kind of been half hoping for a long time. Now, I'm not going to be sure though if underground mode will be in the next update, but it's certainly a good way forward for the game. Let's just get into the report. It says, "Greetings, comrades of the Soviet Republic. We have got some underground news for you in this report, but let us talk first about fixes which will be implemented in the 0.8.40 version of the game. There are some issues players were complaining about connected with loading and unloading of trains or other vehicles. It happens that when a train is loading at a station, that even it does not have waiting till loading ticked, if there's a slow flow of resources, it will not leave until the flow stops or the train is fully loaded. This should not happen in the future." I have to admit, this has been quite an irritating feature, and I'm hoping it's also going to be for trucks, because quite often you will get a truck come into a loading point and it will sit there, and then another truck will come in alongside it, especially when you're using cargo hubs, and you'll have two trucks both trying to load the same good. Quite often this is things like clothes or alcohol, and then they both sit there while the output is trying to fill both trucks, and then so what effectively happens is they can cause a blockage. Hopefully this fix will resolve that problem. So moving on, another similar issue is related to trains with mixed resources loaded with different types of cargo wagons. For example, if you have a train which is transporting steel and mechanical components and you want to unload only mechanical components, you cannot use wait until unloaded now, because the train will not be able to unload all resources if not all of them are required at the station, and thus it will wait indefinitely. Then the other case is when loading, when you have a train with multiple types of wagons and you want to load only one type of cargo in that station, but the train would not be able to fully load because of all the wagons being loaded if you ticked wait until loaded in the schedule. These issues should be fixed with the upcoming update 0.8.40. Trains will try to load and unload only resources which are specified in their schedule, not in the whole cargo space. Now, I have to admit, this was one of the frustrating elements I had with my Baltic series, because I had trains with multiple wagons and they were picking up, like, say, food and clothes from one station, then they were going around to pick up cement in another station, and you couldn't use the options like wait until loaded or wait until unloaded. So this is going to be a very useful fix going forward if you're going to use complex trains, especially in the light of the fact that what's going to happen in the hopefully the next update is you'll be able to specify the percentage of what cargoes can be loaded at each station. So I think this is very much a follow-on from that. So moving on to the next paragraph, you may want to mention how the game deals with inflation over time. You may be aware of some ridiculous numbers people get in their accounts after a century of success in the game. It was addressed in the past, but we think it's worth mentioning that not everyone knows about that. The game has a basic initial price for resources and work. If these get multiplied 1,000 times over time, then in the beginning of the next year of the game will offer you a dialogue for you to divide your money by 1,000. That way you can get from billions back to millions. Okay. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, this isn't something that normally affects my gameplay because I tend to focus more on self-sufficiency over profit. But I know I have seen players with kind of 300-400 million in their accounts while I was actually watching them playing. And I'm really glad that there is a way to fix that, because what can happen is that the money can build up to a point where it becomes a game breaker. So let's just move on now to what I think is going to be a major game changer, and it's going to give me a problem, but I'll talk about that once I've actually gone through what underground mode is. Underground mode, and now we want to introduce you to the underground mode. This is another view for you available when planning your infrastructure. It will offer you another layer for your infrastructure, and you will be able to see pipelines, tunnels, and even vehicles, trains, and people moving underground. Now, I think the key word there is people moving underground. While in that view, you will be able to create underpasses for pedestrians, yes, with multiple exits, and draw pipelines underground. It'll be possible to connect an underground pipe to the surface pipe directly to the facility if your connection is not too high above the surface. Now, the underground pipes is a really big change in its own right. But of course, at the moment, we got mods that can do that. For me, the biggest change is underground pedestrians. And I think we all have the same problem with factory connections. And the ability to go under factory connections and rail tracks will make a very big difference in our planning. So we'll just have a quick look at the pictures. So we'll just click on the picture here. You can see here what we got is a heating plant with a couple of heat exchangers, and this is the surface view. And then over here we've got the underground view here. It's quite useful, the fact that you've got a phantom shadow of the surface pipe as well when you're planning underground, which will make making the connections a lot easier. But I'm really looking forward to getting this. We'll just close that, go down to the next one and see. This is train tunnels, and you can see these train tunnels are actually curved and got junctions in. I think this is quite fun in being able to see your trains and going along underground. What I would really like to see is this is possibly the beginning of an underground transit system. I'm not expecting that in the short term, but it's got that potential. And we'll just have a look here. And this is obviously a pipe connect work here. Oh no, it's got the multiple connections there. So it's showing that you can move the pipes underground. And I must admit, I really dislike the pipes running across the surface. I know in many countries it's quite common, but here in the UK it's very uncommon. I don't mind the pipes when you're running pipelines across oil fields, because that kind of fits, but heating pipes is something that goes. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is the fact that this doesn't seem to show heating pipes, because this again is very much a fuel pipe system. So I'm hoping that this will apply to heating pipes as well. Let me just go up and have a look. It says pipelines. I'm just going to read the last section, and then I'll come back and just talk a little bit more about this. We want also to allow you to place buildings over underground pipelines with other infrastructure. It will work in a way that you will need to plan and build your pipes first in a free area, and then you will be able to plan surface structure above that after. With that in mind, we want to revisit the current limitations connected to buildings and terraforming above tunnels too. We hope you will enjoy these changes when implemented, as there will be much more options and significantly improve the game. To stay tuned to the next report. Now that is a very interesting statement, because what they're saying is that if you're laying out a town, you're going to have to work out your pipelines and flows, especially if they do allow heating. Then that means that you're going to have to lay the pipeline system in first. And that may also apply to pedestrian underpasses as well. That could make life a bit difficult when laying out cities. Now, what I will say is that they're not mentioning power cables here. To be honest, I would like to see this layer also include power cables, because again, because I live in the UK, if you live in urban areas, all the power cables are underground. You've got to go out into rural areas to see overhead power cables. I mean, this isn't the high tension cables. These are the local power supplies. In fact, where I live, virtually all the cabling is underground, even the telephone wires. I mean, you've got the occasional pole which comes up to send to houses, but even the main cables, the cable TV, the internet, piping, everything is actually underground. So I really like the idea of this going forward, but I can see there could be a few issues related to constructing things underground if you've already got existing buildings. Now, also in this final sentence, there is a reference to tunnels, and this is the fact that if you build a tunnel, you can't put anything above that tunnel. If you go to place a building, you will see that it's an infrastructure conflict. So it looks like they're actually fixing that issue as well at the same time. So overall, a very interesting community report. And to be completely honest, they're not saying that the underground mode will be in the 0.8.40 update. No, but what I will say is that these fixes, these loading, unloading fixes for trains, and I'm hoping it will also include ships, will have a very big impact on the game going forward. Finally, what I will say is if they do put this underground mode in the next update, it could give me a real problem with respect to my current series, because I'll be looking at my cities and saying, oh, I could put a pedestrian subway there or something. part of me says I'd like to see this underground mode as soon as possible. There's also part of me that says I'd rather you devs spend a little bit of time working on it and maybe put it in a release, not the next release, but the release after that. So I think that's all I need to say. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you found it interesting. Any comments and opinions about this new layer, feel free to chuck it in the comments and we'll see what we can find out. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.